and showed the baby-like complexion.
I don't even want to know what you look like under that.
From an unweather-worn face, given it's been beard protected since I was 17 or 18 years old.
You getting out from under that beard would be like Gollum coming out of his cave, I think. I don't know if I want to see it.
And the way my hair's going at the moment, on the top of my head, would kind of like whisper like his.
For beard, precious!
I'm not quite Luke Gale. And I'm also 4 years older than him.
Although you look about the same.
What, so I look 27?
No, he looks really, really old.
You're trying to overcompensate it, Tom. Right, we'll move on to something new now. Paul Michael Craig, he got in touch. He said, on the League Leaders Shield being described as the hubcap, it could be worse. In Australia, the A-League trophy is known as the toilet seat.
Yeah, I'd look at that. It does look a bit like a toilet seat, doesn't it?
I've
Googled it, yeah. Or as they call it down there, a dunny seat. Learning things as we go.
Proper good lingo there.
Yes.
Malcolm Whittle got in touch. He said, he quoted me saying, work within our sport, but belittle it at every opportunity you get. He said, hit the nail on the head there, Mark. And that was in reference to my comments about people calling the League Leaders Shield the hubcap. I had a conversation with about this with my Uncle Liam at the weekend when we were at the Wigan game. And I've come to the conclusion it's jealousy driven by whoever was the first team who didn't win it, whose either closest competitor or rival was awarded it that year, has then called it that, and then it's carried through because we're all negative beasts in
well, it is catchy as well, isn't it? It does catch, and it does look at, it's a round plate shield, isn't it? So it does. It summons up that idea in your mind.
Next year at Wimbledon, I'm going to refer to whatever Serena Williams is lifting as the Wimbledon hubcap.
About 120 kilos, isn't it?
But either way, it's good to see. It was a good sign that they're giving medals out to the winners of the League Leaders Shield. I think I mentioned this last week anyway, but giving them a winner's medal to go along with it legitimises the thing even more, along with the greater prize fund allocation that started from last year. So all good steps to evening out the fact that it is a 3-trophy competition that we run with the Challenge Cup, Grand Final, and the League Leaders Shield, and all of them are well merited by the winners and should be celebrated by the winners and congratulated by everyone else.
Yes, indeed.
Even if it's Warrington. Mark Wilco got in touch.
But listen, right, if you're going to let Warrington win a trophy, you'd rather it be this one than one in a couple of weeks, wouldn't you?
Well, to be honest, as long as...
Can you imagine what they're going to be like if they actually win Super League? God. They're going to be insufferable.
If they do, it'll be richly deserved, unless they do off the back of some sort of punching people in the face.
I'm not saying they won't deserve it.
And thinking like they're on some high horse.
I'm not saying they won't deserve it. You just know what it's going to be like. That meme of Ned Stark, brace yourself. The Warrington fans are coming. It's going to happen, and if they do win it, they'll win it on the back of having been the best team all season. And I don't, begrudge the players it. But come on, it's going to be just...
Well, either way, we're going to win in it. I'm three different winners of 3 different trophies, and it's going to be fantastic year in the end. After what's been a pretty poor year before. Okay, Mark Wilco, he says, I worry how easy it is to convince me to buy biscuits. First Biscoff, and now I'm desperate for a cookie dough Kit Kat.
Oh, I hope you've had one, because they're phenomenal.
Yeah, well, Chris Macy agrees with you. He says, have to agree, Tom, that the cookie dough Kit Kat is confectionery work of art. Great podcast again, guys. Also, congrats, Mark. Oh, thanks, Chris. Another one from Chris. He said, with regards to the season review, do you want it recorded or just emailed? Also, if recorded, do you recommend any apps?
Well, he's sent one in.
He has sent one in. I haven't played it yet. I don't know if you have.
No.
Shocker.
I've noticed.
Anyway, we do want them recorded because we want to be able to play other people's voices like we have the last 2 years. For anyone who's new on board, our season review show, we do a little bit of a laugh at ourselves for how bad our predictions were, tap ourselves on the back for the odd one we get right, and then play in fan season reviews to talk more about the campaigns that have happened. And we want that from as many fans of as many clubs across all the leagues as possible to put into the show. Email them to superleaguepod@gmail.com. And in terms of apps, everyone who's got a smartphone will have a voice recording facility on there, and it's just a case of using that and then finding the file in your file manager, or even if it just shows up after you've finished recording it, and click on the button to share. Share by email, superleaguepod@gmail.com. Send it over, we'll do the rest.
We certainly will.
And don't worry about the length. Anything from 1 minute to 5 minutes is what we've had on before. We sort of suggest around about 3, but we are flexible to go. We're going to play them anyway, aren't we?
Of course we are.
So get them in, guys.
And more than one. If we get more than one per team, then you'll all get your airtime. So get
Yeah, I'm worried about getting a Saints one because we haven't been getting too many Saints fan reviews of games recently.
Yeah.
So let's hope that we'll get one of that, and a Wigan one that isn't me would be cool as well, because usually the Wigan fans that listen kind of leave the Wigan talking to me.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get some of guys involved on those two great clubs.
Superb.
Paul Michael Craig again, he said, on teams 5 to 8 having nothing to play for, maybe the top 6 rather than the top 8 could get a bye in the Challenge Cup.
How many buys are we dishing out?
Or maybe a wild card 4th versus 5th playoff then. Would fit in with the £1 million game. For what it's worth, though, I like the 8-8-8 setup. My only whinge about the English Rugby League system is 30 games in a season is too many.
I agree completely with that last sentence. 30 games in a season is far too many, and that's before you even count in, successful cup runs and things like that.
And I also think, as I've said before, and I think this is what Paul was following on from, is don't mess around with the structure, with the outputs. Mess around with the inputs. Give these teams more secure settings to build from, to be a sustainable full-time outfit, whether they are in the Championship or the Super League. Get to a position where we've got 16 fully functioning full-time clubs, and if one of them goes, there's another one that's going to come in, and then that's the way we need to try and get our system going, like the NRL system is. And you don't hear us much talk about the NRL season being meaningless for teams that have finished outside the playoffs, as you do Super League. Maybe it's because we're more immersed in the British environment, but you'd also don't hear it as much about other sports as well. It's just a rugby league issue that we seem to think every game, because of a clever advertising slogan, people have lost their shit because that's what rugby league fans do, because it isn't actually true. Well, shocker, it was an advertising slogan.
The thing is, down under, they can construct a narrative.
Mars a day doesn't help you work, rest and play, Tom.
No, it doesn't bark. Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, down under, they construct a narrative around players getting new contracts, who's going to be going where, who's trying to earn himself a place, coaches moving on, things like that. So it does still, hold pertinence, doesn't it? So maybe we could be better at doing that.
And we'll strive to do that as our SLP motto. We'll make every game matter.
Oh, God. I think we've got more chance of putting lead in everyone's pencil.
A few longer form ones to drop in, Tom. God, this is going to run and run. But this is
big show this week,
sir. Good ones to get involved with these ones. So Rich Wilkinson sent us a message, I believe on Facebook, because that's how he normally gets in touch. That's Super League Pod, facebook.com/Super League Pod for anyone who wants to get in touch that way. He says, now then, lads.
Come on.
Great pod as always. First off, I almost pissed myself at Mark's comment, are you trying to do Batman? Epic fail.
I was trying to do Batman, but I couldn't remember how it went.
So, I've not had a rant for a bit, so here we go. Just listening to our mates at This Week in League. They were talking refs and mentioned that cricket coverage commentators were starting to bag the umpires. Richie Benno, God bless him, being the leader of that commentary team, shut it down right away, saying that it's their job to call a play and not criticise us umpires. Wisdom at its best. Let's jump to the Sky coverage. Now, if Terry and Barry are listening, please pass it on to that Stuart Cummings needs to F off. Sky's narrative of constantly questioning the refs is doing the game no favours. Steve-O is the worst, but he is finished. How many times do you constantly hear that bumblefoot come in and saying refs' call was wrong? We all know refs make mistakes, but not as many as players or coaches. And the fuckwit commentators in question, Barry and Terry and anyone who's listened, excluded from that, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's quite easy to talk a big game on the opposite side of the world, isn't it?
Sky's piss-poor, cheap-shot, in-game narrative of constantly bagging the refs is a blight to the game. What say you, boys? I've had enough.
I definitely agree. I do think that we focus too heavily in the coverage, particularly on Sky, on referee performance, and I think that dictates an overall kind of opinion that rugby league fans as a group have, that refereeing is in decline and, oh God, the refs are shitter than they were 10 years ago or what have you. I think the problem is that Stuart Cummings is actually a very intelligent, obviously very astute rugby league voice and his area of expertise in refereeing is valuable to the coverage. Where I think they get it wrong is how they execute that, and actually what he should be doing is more clarification and less commentary. Less bias really, and that's what I'd love to hear from him, and have him tell me why decisions have been made, but not he's got that quite wrong. And sometimes he does come across as quite critical, and then that influences people to go out and say and not encourage the refs at a time when we absolutely need to be encouraging more referees through the programme. It seems like the overall flavour of the month at the minute is to slag off refereeing in rugby league and just wring our hands with anxiety over it.
Well, the Steve-O comments of that should have been a penalty and then he's going to blow the pee out the whistle, that seems to roll off the back of each other. For years now, Steve-O, as much as he loves rugby league, has been a parody of everything about the sport because of the fact that he just says things. He doesn't necessarily watch what's happening anymore. He doesn't seem to be in tune with the game as it's played today. But the guy loves rugby league. He knows a lot about the history and heritage of the sport, and is a legend of the sport as a player and a broadcaster, to be completely honest. But he does come out with a lot of waffle that causes problems. I think his mate Eddie is the bigger issue. He leads in all these factors. I think the other side of that coin is there are people in that commentary team who do not slag referees off constantly, who do not look to find a way of blaming match officials for the way the narrative of a game has unfolded, and they would be Brian Carney, Phil Clark, John Wells, and particularly Phil Clark doesn't get any respect for his opinions because everyone hates him. Even though actually comes out with a lot of level-headed things, people just associate it with some sort of Wigan bias somehow and discredit everything he says. Brian Carney similarly seems to be dismissed as being quite arrogant by a lot of people because his views often differ to the mainstream narrative that we've been fed through that group of commentators for 20 years, 30 years. So I think there's things that need to be sorted out.
Well, there's going to be big changes, isn't there? Because one of the hallmark of Sky's rugby league coverage has been Steve-O and Eddie, hasn't it? And that dynamic is changing with Steve-O's imminent retirement. So it will be interesting to see who fills that role and how they kind of rejig things in terms of the guys that they've got on staff there. Because you cease to be amazed by the number of voices that actually pipe up during games as well. Like, no mention at all of Stuart Cummins being, part of commentary. Then all of a sudden you'll hear his voice, and so just to have some clarity and some, a settled roster on that front would be useful, I would go so far as to say.
Okay, David Pye got in touch again through Facebook this week. He said, on my way to London enjoying the podcast, guys. Just a quick one. The free play is now pointless. I don't think I have seen it lead to anything in years. How many free plays are offered and how many are not brought back? I guess it's 90% of plays get brought back. Well, Wigan scored 2 tries on free plays on Friday night.
Yes.
So
we'll get to
one
that.
of them a 90-metre, high quality effort that wouldn't have been scored without the free play. And that's just a micro example from this weekend.
It's poor timing really, if nothing else, for Dave's point, but
I think a lot of the time it helps the game flow. We get too many scrums as it is, with the players making as many errors as they make, combined with the amount of good play that people will make kicking for touch and things like that. So anything that gets unnecessary scrums out of the game and the free play,
it's an envelope within the game that encourages creativity as well, which I quite like.
Well, it's also the whistle doesn't go straight away for a scrum in these circumstances, and so you might end up with more players getting tackled, maybe not making an advantage, but getting tackled, and the play just going on, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, superb.
I like it still.
Good to hear from Dave, though.
Yeah, it's great to hear from him, and good to hear that his operation that he had has been a success. He's in good health now. Excellent. That's great. I was looking at the Saints,
transition continues
at the Saints Academy signings to see if his young lad was on the list yet, but I suppose he's a couple of years too young. But
possibly,
the big lad.
Have a look out.
Yeah,
he comes from big stock, doesn't he, that kid? Fantastic. Okay,
and handsome stock as well.
Yeah. Well, look, Dave's a nice guy. I'm not as in love with him as you are in terms of the obvious physical attraction you feel to the guy.
What can I say?
You love who you love, I guess. The heart wants what it wants, Mark.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Kevin Keir got in touch by email. If you want to email us, it's superleaguepod@gmail.com. This is a little bit of a longer one, but we've been waiting on Kev to get in touch.
I think it was well worth it.
Definitely. He says, hi Mark and Tom, Kevin Keir here at RL Jockboy on Twitter and Instagram. That's boy with a BHOY in the Celtic sense, which we'll explain in a minute. Here's my story of how I got into rugby league and came across your great podcast. First things first, I was always a round ball man, following my team Celtic all over Scotland and into Europe a few times. This was all to the detriment of my father, who is Australian and loves nothing but rugby league. He's a North Queenslander, by the way, who was on at me for years to just give the game of RL a chance, but